guy did, Dateline, be on every night, and they would make up skits and respond to the news. And
in a way, as a tactile artist, he was making us aware that everything is a reality show. Everything is going to become media content, and you're on. It's like the show. The show must go on. You are part of the show, of the big concept.
He says in Burnt Weenie Sandwich on the album, you hear him say to the German audience in October '68, everybody in this room is wearing a uniform. Now, McLuhan would have refined that. A uniform is what industrial people wore. The electric people wore costumes. He would say young people liked the cop on the motorcycle. That's a cop with a costume. But the bureaucratic cop sitting there with his little listen. The bureaucrat. You want to hear the complete thought? The bureaucratic cop is standing there with a little notepad, putting tickets on people. The kids don't like the bureaucratic cop. He's in the uniform. They like the cop that's in the costume, the motorcycle. So what were you saying?
Is that they are not identities but roles? Like that's why he put up the costumes like in a carnival.
Right. And you know how all things media communicate. Well, the popular sensibility of that, since media are clothing, you wear these environments. So what happened by the 70s? People started having their T-shirts communicate messages. That was a subliminal popular reaction to realizing all objects communicate. Have messages, and
McLuhan was translating this with his slogans, and he was very criticized because of that, because many thought, the intellectuals thought, oh, he's too simple. But he was actually
too quick,
being too smart, like putting a whole
He was having perfect pitch.
And slogan like, is the message. I mean, explain that.
Gerd Stern, when he read Don Thiel's book about McLuhan as a poet, he says, I never thought of McLuhan as a poet. Now, Gerd Stern's a poet, thought of himself as a poet. He never thought McLuhan was a poet. But McLuhan was the greatest poet of the last 50 years because he did it conversationally. He did it in a casual way that people talk. He didn't try to make fancy sonnets or fancy complex poems or abstract poems. Because language was fading out, he turned casual talk into an art form, plus everything else he did. So he made the most advanced poetry around, and none of the official poetry world knows that.
Yes, and this is
the most relevant poetry.
Or concept of what is an artist, the tactile artist in these new environments that they're both showing us.
That's a good point. A tactile artist knows that speech is tactile, not oral. He did speech in a tactile way, waiting for the audience's response. He was in dialogue, and he wrote books with another person. Didn't do a solo thing. Norman Mailer was a solo guy who was always arguing with McLuhan.
Well, fourthly, I have to be transmitted into another frequency.
yes, that's the way to say it. Very good.
To be myself.
Okay, so what I would like to do, I would like to do the freak out things. We can't do without you. Are we going to stop the Zappa thing? Do you want to hear what we don't do, Roxy, or do you want to be part of everything that we do so you can have your input?
Well, I would like to be part of it, but maybe you can do also something else. I don't know, as you like.
And you would? I probably won't. But we did something. We didn't do a lot of what we. I want to review Them or Us on a bigger level, so we'll do it next week.
Yes. And,
okay.
I think we should also explore all this list with more audio examples because it's really amazing. Like the Canadian composer you played also. That man is on the list of Zappa influences and. For example, I never heard about him. That it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's new
to explore all these.
Yeah, so we will. I got all the clips you sent this week. Space and the playing with computers and the laptop orchestras. We'll play all that next week.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Roxy.
That's another. Yes, we can talk about Zappa and technology and all his developments.
But everybody should go to the castle. Go see the footage on the castle.
Yes, I sent the links to it, so I suppose he's going to put them on.
Right, you'll put it up.
Them on the Dobbs later.
All right,
okay,
good.
For
yes. See you later, boss.
Have fun.
Take care, man. Have a good week.
We'll clean up the mess that you left. We'll clean up all the scraps of your big dinner. Yeah, it was nice meeting the Rockefellers. You know, we met the Rockefellers tonight. They came in to dine with Roxy.
They're all in the Chambord Castle.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, talk to you later. All right, so Bert, I think we'll... she can't leave. You want to hear some music before you go? Look, other people dropped. Oh, that's you. Somebody just dropped off, but it seemed like more than one. Are you still there, Bert?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so is there a Zappa song I could play? What could I play? Let's see. Isn't that McLuhan article awesome? That it is a good time to stop and bring in McLuhan's, unique perception to show how it relates to Zappa. So that worked. It was a good time to bring in a McLuhan thing in the middle of the Zappa thing. So where is my list here? Here is Zappa, Why Vote? So this is some kind of documentary, 27 minutes, and I just glanced at it, but apparently Zappa ends up talking about voting. So let's play this. I think it's made by someone else with a collage of other things, so this might be a good thing to listen to for a while. Okay, so I got everything ready. So you'll be around you're here for another few hours, right, Bert?
Yes.
Okay. Mute all.
All participants are now muted.
Put up the sound. Where's the sound volume? Sound.
Congressman helps lead nearly 600 people on a march to highlight their demands to register in.
Okay, I got to move it back to the beginning. It's already well into it, so here we go.
And police use fire hoses and
Hopefully it'll start here. Okay, Bert, did you hear that? Oh, mute you. Did you hear that, Bert?
Yes. Explains a lot. I heard an interview last week of Frank, and he was on Larry King, and Larry King asked him some questions about why he was always pushing certain issues, and Frank told Larry King that I am a constitutional fundamentalist.
Yeah, and that I have to check it again. I think it said produced by Frank and Gail Zappa. What was I going to say? That was about us, the Black Caucus, how we got the vote.
Yeah.
That's me, my history. Let me just, okay, so is there anything you want to talk about lingering from other issues that you want to get into? Any questions or statements from over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I have a question. Something you said earlier I saw a link to what you just discussed with Roxana on It's in My Chart, the latest video. Earlier, when Carolyn was on, you were talking about you had a interesting pattern with the Book of Nature and the Book of Scriptures. And and how that intermeshes. Would that be like the ground of the figure of the five-body interplay that you referenced in the video?
No. I don't know what I updated it, but the book of Scripture is the Bible. So that was in manuscript form for 1,500 years or more, and nobody read it except for monks, right? So nobody knew about the Bible in manuscript level. I don't know the peasants. They attended the rituals of the church. Who knows how many were involved? I don't know how many were forced, but that was the book of Scripture. The book of nature comes in at some point when people start taking philosophy and applying it to the constituents of matter, the constituents of the environment they were living in. So basically the book of nature is about science, and the book of Scripture is about revelation. So those were the two books. So then when the printing press came in, those two types of manuscripts were sort of, first of all, the Bible was printed and became the biggest bestseller, but the book of nature got changed to what was called natural philosophy. That's Bacon and maybe even Newton wrote about natural philosophy. And then that becomes eventually chemistry, physics, and sciences. So I'm taking that old trope, that old division, the book of nature and the book of Revelation. There isn't any of that around today other than in museums. And I'm saying Ion explains the book of Revelation, but is very interested in talking about the book of nature or science or new science or the angel chart. That would be book of nature. So I'm just taking classifications from 1,000 years ago and applying it to Iondom. That's all. That's not something to get all worried about or worked up in trying to figure out. So the five bodies would be a combination of the book of nature and book of Scripture, because Ion makes nature intimately involved with spiritual, non-physical matters. So the two books will be reunited under Iondom. The two meanings of the books. So that I'm presenting in my diagram the chart of nature and the chart of Scripture. I didn't know the Scripture part. That's what the angels put in there, and that's what Ion will find in there. So I thought I was describing the book of nature, or updating the role of the book of nature once you get into the Android meme, or how the book of nature would be described.
Okay.
So it's not that important. Though Carolyn, when she heard me talk about it, she never heard that distinction between the book of nature and the book. Now, you would have seen that in Gutenberg Galaxy. You read that book.
Say again, I didn't hear you. Blipped out when you...
You would have seen the two terms, book of nature and book of Scripture, in the Gutenberg Galaxy, which you read.
Yes. Yes.
Do you remember it being there?
I remember the book of nature. I don't remember the book of Scripture.
Yeah.
I remember the reference to the book of nature.
Yeah, it's around the time of Francis Bacon does a new updating of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he lives at the time of Shakespeare. So let's go on to another topic. There's not much to say about that.
Can I talk about George Duke, or are we going to wait for Roxana?
Oh, yeah. Let me bring up that. That was very interesting. I knew I had another statement about the Black Caucus. Let me get to it and read your statement. Parts of it can be made public. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, here it is. Just getting it. You say, Bob, here are some topics that have crossed my mind this week concerning Frank Zappa and music. I get the impression while listening to Zappa's music that he crammed a lot of notes, chords into each of his compositions. Is this the case? Would be a great question for Roxana. Yeah, we've got to get her to talk about that. Frank was a master tactician. Was there a particular strategy in creating his song titles, like Occam's Razor, Imaginary Diseases? Yeah, I think he meant something. While surfing YouTube, I just noticed the connection that George Duke played with Frank. Frank had a tremendous impact on George Duke. George said that Frank pushed him to do things outside of what he wanted to do. George Duke was one of my favorites to listen to in college in the late 70s, early 80s. So, yes, many of us in the Black Caucus thought a lot of George Duke and had no clue he was working with that Italian Frank Zappa. We did not know that. Right?
Right. I had no idea. I mean, I remember earlier when you were talking about it, and you hear a reference to George Duke played it, but I never did the connection until it was because of Ed posted on his site about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, about what? Finish, George.
No, Ed posted on his site that the Sundance Film Festival is going to have a documentary of Eat That Question. And I just clicked on it, and then that's when I saw that, George Duke is in this movie with Frank. And then I did some more, YouTube research and just found out a lot more of the connection between.
That's how you find out the connection. That's how you made the connection. Well, Duke was in the band from 1970 till about 74. And then he went into jazz. He left Frank. So if you went to college in the late 70s, that was post Frank Zappa, George Duke. He wouldn't you wouldn't know about the Zappa part. But he learned a lot from Frank. He learned to play triplets. He was shocked that he had to play this simple R&B stuff. He couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
He said he could like it.
Yeah. What tickled me is the first thing he asked about him, and he said Frank sat him down and told him he was too stiff.
Right.
And that just...
Right.
And how he opened him up. He taught him how to sing. That's why I had effect, because he had a lot of his albums later. He sang, had a lot more humor in his music, and he attributed that to Frank, that his humor he got exclusively from Frank Zappa.
Yeah, like Duke took that question, does humor belong in music, and it changed him, considering that, or working with Frank, resolving that question. Then you say you played a cut during the first hour of the show last week where a guy talked about turning his iPhone into an instrument. I want to ask Roxana some questions on the subject of the change in instruments in the new environment. Well, I've got some clips. I could play one. They're pretty interesting. They're taking computers and conducting them. Let's see.
Yeah, Roxana mentioned that 2 weeks ago or last week about laptop orchestras, and I found that interesting. But I never got a chance to ask her about it. But that's cool. That's interesting.
Yeah, she sent some links. So we got here Prince. Well, we'll just play this one, and it's the Princeton Laptop Orchestra. And it's called PLORC, P-L-O. I guess stands for Princeton Laptop Orchestra, RK. I'd have to look up what small letters RK stands for. So this guy's conducting. People sit in front of their computers. So you can look that up, Princeton Laptop Orchestra, PLORC, and watch what they do as they play their Apple MacBooks or something that looks like that. Let's see. There's the Stanford Laptop Orchestra. We got a few of those, but I would wait till Roxy was here for her to comment on them.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question from last week. Something you said to me that there's no longer any individual media. Can you enlarge on that?
Well, what's an iPhone? Is an iPhone a telephone as we used to experience telephones?
No, I see.
No,
because it has all the other connection.
Right, and you can walk around with it. The phone was stuck to the wall. So the older people have this image of the telephone as something stuck to the wall that they had to go to speak and use. That is not an image that people have with their new communication media. So the telephone doesn't even apply. The imagery doesn't exist anymore. So when you read McLuhan's Understanding Media, and he has a whole chapter on telephone, you have to look it up if you're younger, what it looked like and what it did. So that's a separate medium. On the iPhone, you've got newspapers, movies, video, get all the different media that are categorized separately in Understanding Media. There's no such non-seamless web anymore. So what is the medium? What is the figure of the iPhone? What is this content? What's it made up of? I mean, what do you begin to describe where it is? How far wide ranging it is?
Yeah, it's okay. I see. So does that what you mean? Sometimes you say that the user is the content. So then is that an example of someone using the iPhone? No. Then that's
no. The user has always been the content. The user is the response of an individual and their temperament and their makeup and their conditioning and whatever else they bring to their being. They project that into the content. The content becomes meaningful in relation to how they interpret the usefulness or not, or aptness or appropriateness of the content. So the iPhone is not limited to just the content. The iPhone is an environment that stretches over the whole planet in a seamless web, the mesh, a shroud, and people project their individual meanings into the content they see. But that's not useful. That's not a major issue when you're trying to understand the form of the iPhone structure.
Mm-hmm. So we're just so the digital landscape.
Let me at this point. Remember what you're going to say. You got it?
Yep.
You know what you're going to say? Okay.
Yep.
McLuhan wrote The Medium is the Message and played down individual involvement with the media. He was talking about mass crowd archetypes and what was happening when the satellite came in and the computer. He said in Take Today, well, I talked about medium is a massage for the last 15, 20 years, and I didn't discuss the user. Well, we can talk about the user now, and the slogan for that is, the user is the content. So he admitted that he purposely suppressed information about the user or how to look at it because he wanted people to understand the formal dynamics of media at that time. That was more important. Like he said, the contents of a book aren't as important as the fact of what the book did as an environment. That's way more important, significant than the content of any particular book.
Mm-hmm. So then, would the digital landscape be an extreme effect on all the mediums because it's so open?
All the older mediums, which aren't there.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the iPhone? It's this sequence of algorithms or code that refers to potential transmissions and reception. So remember, people have to sit down and watch TV. They don't have to sit down. This whole static existence with media environments, even though you traveled by the discounted effect of radio and TV, you still have seen and perceived yourself in a visual space, a visual frame. It's not the case. If you want to know what is going on right now in the iPhone, look at a page of Fitting Its Wake. There's hundreds of languages being communicated, hundreds of media aspects, and it's a big jumble, and that's a page of Fitting Its Wake. I mean, that's a painting of what we're made up of.
Yes.
We're made up
it's funny,
of the iPhone.
No, I was thinking 3 weeks ago, I got I thought about something we discussed about you said always talked about the shrinking of all the landscapes and are in the chip body. I got an SMS, an instant message from my phone carrier offering a program where I could watch television on my iPhone. And that was like...
you can't do that yet? I thought you could. I guess you can watch YouTube. That's okay.
YouTube, yes, but they actually were offering a subscription to get onto the Swiss television network on the iPhone.
Well, okay, there it is. They got that too. But you know what? I guess it applies to a lot of people. You've never been in a situation where you're constantly getting email that's imitating some institution, and it's not the institution. They're scammers. They're trying to get your credit card. You have to be able to sort through this devious emails. Like that's a pretty weird experience to have, walking around. It's like walking down the street and every second person whispering something to you, something threatening, and you don't know whether they're joking or not. Some of them are joking, some aren't. I mean, look at that. You got this judgment you got to make on all this information coming to you.
Yeah.
You see, all the old categories of communication don't apply anymore. None of them. Anything I'm receiving, millions of other people are receiving. There are things I'm receiving that nobody's receiving. So I've got that part. Then there's surveillance of what I'm receiving. Then there's different kinds of expressions, different environments to go into. What is solid in that situation? Even in the description of that experience. McLuhan was talking about the instant replay. What about the instant pre-play? A lot of people are, Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, people have to spend a lot of time organizing their schedule. They have to know what they're doing over the next stretch of time, constantly changing, updating it.
Yeah, it's different. It's a whole different environment now with the digital landscape. I mean, I noticed that just in the work environment. It's totally different, but it's funny. It's funny to see some of the older bureaucratic-minded folks in a new organization now, in electronic, that they still try to apply the old paradigms that they use as far as control. They really don't have an idea. It made me think. It made me think of McLuhan when the executive is Dropout. I see that more so now than I did before after just reading and browsing through that book, because there are some folks within the organization I work for, they're still in the mindset of the old bureaucratic, whereas we have that email, electronic, digital process that everyone has to adapt to. So it's not like you come in, you sit, and you do your, A to Z processes, but in between that, you still have to deal with the digital aspect or the email and the continuous communication by email and telephone. So that's it's like multitasking is actually a way of life now in the new work environment because of this. So everyone is being changed. A lot of them don't recognize it, but it's fun for me to recognize it and to surf through it. But it's really different. It's really different. Just if someone right now would compare whatever type of work they're in, what they're doing now compared to what they were doing maybe even 10 years ago, it's totally different.
Yeah.
We're being mutated in a way. I mean,
the media environment seems, to the degree you're media, you're being mutated, but not completely your media. You know, I'm still in 90s. I don't have any of this digital life. And this has been going on for 10 or more years, right? This thing. I don't walk around with anything, so I'm not looking and communicating. When I come home, I look at my computer, and that shows me emails and maybe occasional phone message. And that's all I got. So I don't have any of the skills that people have in scanning, clicking, whatever they do with their fingers on the screen that they touch, the little iPhone screen. So I'm quite out of date with those sensibilities or those pressures that you're describing everybody has at work. I got no experience in that. So on my chip body level, I'm quite out of date in experience. I concentrate on having the meaning without the experience. I'm always making up patterns about what's going on. It's based on it's not based on experience. I'm the first I'm the first instant replay philosopher, and I've never thought of this before. I'm describing many experiences, many meanings that I've had no experience in relation to. Really? I make up.
Yeah.
Now, that could be kind of, since I was doing that all these decades and kind of predicted ION, I count on ION keeping me ahead of everybody, or whatever level I have to be. ION is my ground, my blanket, security blanket. You know, I'm always knowing things that people don't know about. So what is that? That could be chemical body information. I've retrieved my chemical body, and even it incorporates a bit of the astral body too. So chemical and astral body. That's what I'm keeping ahead of. I'm not up on my TV. Lately, last few years, I'm up on TV because I watch a lot of TV shows, even though it's kind of irritating. But I've got many hours, and I like to look at something passively without having to make an effort. You know what I mean? So pass some time that way. And so I'm probably quite informed in the TV body consumption, not on the Oprah Winfrey talk shows, but on particular TV shows. And my chip body is very retarded. Like, I don't even have a digital phone here. I'm using some kind of mobile LAN fucking thing. I don't even know what it is. It doesn't have much on it. It has nothing on it. No neon lights. But I keep ahead. Okay, so what I'm advanced in is the mystery body.
Yes.
And chemical body information, since I'll talk about Henry VIII, Leonardo and all these people, I can find out a bit of their chemical body history and maybe a bit of their mystery body history. That's the information. But that is not... It doesn't influence my being, that kind of information. So I know about, the three Jesus and that. Unless it expands my mind, that loosens up ideas so that the mind can't be trapped, and that helps my mystery body experience. So I may be behind the chip body, but I'm ahead on the mystery body. If there isn't a head, or I'm still exercising myself. I'm still growing. I'm not just retarding and falling back in leaving the chip body experience. And then, I'm hoping, soon, when people can start talking, that's going to be hilarious. When people have speech recognition, like, when's that coming in?
Yeah. In some parts it is. I mean, they have the Siri on the iPhone where you can talk and, say email someone or something. So it's sort of there already, but it'll probably become more interactive.
Yeah.
There's something I wanted to, this sort of on the subject, but I wanted to talk to you about like 2 weeks ago. I think it was Jenny. She played the, you played it on What Youth? The 4 levels of Bob musicology. And right at the end, there was one section, and it blew my mind, and I couldn't hear the rest of it, because there was something you were describing on the 4th level that we would become fractals, but then you mentioned that we would become like atomic beings, and I was like, holy shit, that's Ion talking to Bob.
Yeah.
2 years ago when I heard the what are your bodies made of, and Ion laid out this whole thing about cells. So they came through already used. I mean, it's almost like you are ahead of yourself, because that's in Bob musicology you talked about.
Yeah. Let me say this, Bert. McLuhan said in 1955, we are a super civilized subatomic people. Super civilized, that would be advanced literate kinetic technologies that come out of the literate technocratic world. And subatomic, that's the discarnate, disembodied electronic dispersal of your chemical body. So I'm pretty sure when I said super civilized, subatomic, I didn't want to say all the words, so I just went atomic. I'm pretty sure that's what I was meaning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wasn't imaging what Ion said. But again, McLuhan's, he's the only guy saying, I'm super civilized subatomic. That's high-tech first world overlaid with electronic telegraphic effects. So just those words, I could come up with avant-garde or prophetic statements using McLuhan. That's why reading McLuhan tonight, we should recognize, man, there's a guy saying ionic things, but not referring, unless he means it metaphorically, but he can point to a whole technical environment that has those characteristics. That's how I got ready for Ion, because I was talking McLuhan and ad-libbing or improvising, mutating, subdeaning the McLuhan knowledge, and that sounds like ionic prophet, and it was, but we have to recognize how much it was just me playing with McLuhan.
Did I hear earlier, because I scribbled some notes when I was just listening, you were quoting McLuhan and said, McLuhan said art is the liaison between biology and technology. Did he say that?
Yeah, that's the opening paragraph. Yeah, you were on there when I started reading that, didn't you? Or maybe not.
I came in later.
A little later. You want me to read you the opening paragraph? That's what it was. Yeah, let me. It's important. But see, reading this essay the other night, I said, wow, this has got so many neat, just casually, verbally stated ionic positions, or what sounds like ion, or Ion says what McLuhan's saying, but with a different meaning, a reference to the mystery body, to our deeper being. But the words are the same between McLuhan and Ion. And, nobody was talking casually like this at the time. As a super educated professor, you know what I mean? Nobody was saying these kinds of things. This contains all the past and all the future. Nobody would even believe that. They wouldn't say it. They wouldn't believe it. But he knew something. He was partly right. So McLuhan begins the lecture. I propose to consider art as a liaison between biology and technology, among other things. So he was talking about the artifacts were invented by the cortex of the brain, but the brain stem was more ancient was the instinctual life. And the brainstem, particularly the diencephalon, could not see, did not react to the artifacts like the control of fire, early tools. But these things were affecting the cortex. So there was a split in the human being between his instinctual responses and what the cortex was creating. And art was the mediator between the brainstem's instinctual center, body regulating center, and the cortex. Okay? It's that simple.
Yes. Very. But was there was enough. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
What I'm going to say. A second note was art is going to bridge the cortex with the brainstem. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, the instincts don't recognize second nature, which is technological evolution. It is biology. It's reacting like an animal. It's the Darwinian nature, or whatever you want to call it. Now, this may not be true at all when iron comes in. You know what I mean? This is McLuhan's pattern, 40 years ago. And he said the role of art is to be a protecting buffer between the conflict between the new second nature evolution of technology and the instinctive biological evolution in the brainstem. There's a gap. Humans are reacting to new environments without knowing what they're reacting to. They can't see it. Artifacts were invisible to the brainstem. And so then he quotes A.T. Simeon's Man's Presumptuous Brain, and who goes into the details of this. Of course, that person doesn't say art is the interface between the two. That's McLuhan's, genius innovation there. So McLuhan didn't think that serious art was a frivolity or a decoration. It had a perceptual role to translate the new back to the past. Compromise.
Yeah, because when I heard that, it stimulated... Yes.
No, okay, go on. It stimulated
a memory, because I remember asking Ion about the corpus callosum. And I asked them if it was enlarged, and they didn't respond. So then I asked, was it stimulated? And they said, yes.
Yeah.
So the ions are...
Go ahead. Ions are what?
Ions are interacting with ion, like what you say, just to throw words at them, is actually an effect on our corpus callosum, our whole perception of our interaction with them.
You're saying that the ions affecting the brain? Yeah, of course.
Yes.
The corpus callosum might be affecting parts of your form that you don't know about, like the etheric form.
Yes.
So, Bert, you walk to work, drive to work, or bike to work?
I take a bus, and then I take a little tram or trolley. Yeah.
Right. So you mingle with people.
Yes.
Now, every day you go into the mass, and then you deal with people at work. Now, what am I going to say? What's my next sentence?
Am I noticing anything? Do I interact with them?
No. How many people live like me? I walk to the beach every day. Nobody to say hi to. Nobody interacts with other than walking by tourists on the walkway on the beach who are looking at their iPhones or spanking their kids or trying to get me to fuck them or something, There's very little interaction. You have to, I like to marvel at the way I live. I know my beautiful home, and I walk a beautiful landscape, hardly anybody around. Might have to dodge a golfer or two, then walk down the walkway and walk anonymously through to the beach, swim, and then come back. That is my environment. I don't get on a bus. I don't get on a subway. I don't get in a car. I hardly talk to anybody. Maybe say hi to the woman at the canteen. Now think of that. What's it like to live like that with no cell phone? I'm walking around like a fucking homeless caveman, in relation to most people.
Yeah.
Yet I've got this most avant-garde situation. And, I'm walking with no clothes on and not many clothes, getting nice sun exposure. Got maybe some suntan lotion here and there, but walking in beautiful weather. Now, that's all I know, Bert, in my daily experience. So, am I missing out on something? What am I missing out? What am I enhancing? What am I retrieving? What am I obsolescing? You can't hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes,
okay.
Can you hear me? No,
Yes.
I am trying to reflect on that, and I don't think you're missing anything, but you're engaging yourself, your environment.
Right. That's my chemical body. Now, I spend considerable time reading emails and responding to statements. So I do have an active chip body. But people like to measure themselves in their chemical body life. And they have a lot of industrial interactions they've got that they're used to. Not a problem. But I just marvel on the limited level of my chemical body experience. It may not be limited. I may be flipping back and forth to different worlds and all kinds of stuff that Ian would tell me I'm doing. But I don't have to show up to anybody. I don't have any obligations to anybody. Money flowing freely and easily to me constantly. It's actually, pretty. If I'm walking around like that, with my awareness, my knowledge, I must be leading consciousness. I must be doing something. I can see where I'm a king walking around, living in a very privileged, secure, pampered environment. I don't have to cook anything. All I have to do is just notice what Carolyn's eating, notice what she doesn't eat, and grab that. Grab the leftovers. and then I have her to interact with. So the only person I'm working with is this beautiful person who's doing incredible things all over the place on her computer. That's who I get to interact with. It's pretty much Adam and Eve. Really, an Adam and Eve situation with these accoutrements from. If New York City was part of Babylon, we hear that, we learn that New York City's been around for thousands of years. Then the fact I've got 20th century gadgets, 21st century things here is not minor, but it doesn't matter what is in the outer kingdom. It is this lack of interaction with other beings, with interruptions. You know what I mean? And just with this other person.
Yes.
I think it's pretty... What?
No, it is. If you really look at it from how you just described it, it's the perfect scenario.
Yeah.
For someone to live and then to feel creative. I mean, because you are ahead of a lot of us because of what you've done, and it's manifested now. So now you're sitting on top of the world.
Yeah, and I am on the side of the tallest mountain in the world. I'm on the side of it.
That's right, yeah.
Remember that.
So it's real literally, you are on top of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I could go up and hang out at the top of the world, but I go down the side a bit and go only a little up towards the top of the world. But I'm on the structure, the environment that is one of the highest mountains in the planet. It's 500 feet or something higher than Mount Everest.
Wow, that's and I don't have to put up with
it. What?
They count that because part of it's still in the ocean, but they still count the height of it. Is that correct? That's how they.
Yeah, it's one big mountain. It comes up from the bottom of the sea. It's 20,000 underwater and 10,000 above water.
Wow.
It's a perfect environment for beaming out ionic energies. Like there may be us interacting with ion all these years, so continuously. Who knows what has happened to me and Carolyn, interacting with non-physical like that in a pretty free-flowing situation. We're not having a session and sending in $100. You know what I mean? There's no bureaucratic money involvement. So constantly talking to a Harry Potter situation where, God's sitting there. We're like, God, we have God in the Garden of Eden with us. If God spoke to Adam, we got God speaking to us, or something that's pretty close to what that could be. And we may have our being, which could include etheric forms, chakra forms, physical forms, chromosome, all the parts that makes up my being, which would include parts I don't know. It may be so massaged by ion. Ion has said that I've taken RNA drops for so long that my body's not like any other human beings. I got a mutated body. So we got that, and that can be, hearing that could get me ready for the idea that we have become huge, incredible forces on the planet. And that's why things gather around, like Roxy. We could say it's her own power. I would give her that. But let's say the fact she's interacting with us and doing projects with us, like these videotapes, that means the emanations coming off of us is affecting her reality. And that's why she's getting all the synchronicity all the time.
Like the
Ion said, yeah, and she's just following her own instinct. Okay, what Zappa talks about monsters. Let's look up these Japanese monster movies, and then she ends up understanding Leonardo da Vinci. Now, Ion says that Sue Bone, Sky God Sue, controlled the fate of Air Canada. Sheila controlled the fate of this airplane strike back in April 2010. Sasha controlled Canada somehow. And maybe you control Europe or something. Rubbing up against ion has added something to your being on the social level that you don't know about. But so when Ion says, Bob, you're the most powerful person on the planet, I can actually entertain that thought as a reality, only because we're rubbing up against ion. And I wouldn't know how it manifests in particulars, but why worry about it? It's being done. And living in this test tube, perfect Adam and Eve environment, well, at least I like it. It's perfect for me. Other people might say, no, I like driving my car. I want to go speeding down the highway, So, okay, they do that. And that's part of the joy. And they wouldn't understand the limited experiences I'm having. But it could be that I'm walking around like a hollow ghost, and I've got all these other levels going on, so that's why I have to keep it simple. Simple interaction in the Garden of Eden level. But I am interacting with the data on the internet, the chip body, like anybody else. I'll look at the judge report or look at this and that. People send me articles, look at YouTubes. One thing about preparing the music is really rekindled my awareness of music, my knowledge of music. I really learned a lot the last 3 years doing that. Really like that. Discovered a lot of neat music. So I can go over there. It's like Kim. She just grabs a random show, clicks on the first hour, and enjoys the music. That's what I do. There's so much really great music.
Yes. It seems, I remember Ion, there's so much that they've outlined since they came back in 2014, but I remember them saying something about music, and they're always instances. But it seems to me that when I listen to music, it's different now, because I don't know, I don't recollect. I mean, before I used to be partial to certain types of music. Yes, maybe that's what it is. It's just like, wow. I mean,
I appreciated all kinds of music.
Yes. Actually, your whole track last week, I saved. I'm going to go back and listen to that. Last week was special for some reason. I don't know what, it was just so invigorating. It's so many moods in it that I actually saved it and want to go back and re-listen to it because it was just, I'm like, man, what is this with music? Because it's all types of music now that I can listen to. I mean, what you play is mainly what you play. It does something. And I remember when one of the interactions said there's something about Ion being behind the music or something. I don't know what it is, but it's just my ears are better. Maybe. I mean, maybe my whole.
Well, I am enjoying all kinds of music. I enjoy any kind of music. It doesn't matter what. It's almost like you're in a sort of a loving, accepting mood where you enjoy anything that's expressed to you. It doesn't matter what it is. And then the fact it's musical makes it even more fun because music is generally often pretty pleasurable.
Yeah. And that's why I asked about that question I want to discuss with Roxana, because when I listen to Zappa's music, it seems that he really puts a lot more. I mean, I don't know what I'm very ignorant what I'm saying about notes and chords because I don't know the difference. I mean, music intimidated me. But anyway, it just seems that there's a lot more sounds in his music than normal.
Way richer. Way, like you say, many more notes, many more sound bites crammed in there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes back to like what I heard. And it's
go ahead.
No, it's just because it's something that George Duke said. He said that Frank puts so much into. I mean, he could take because he made the same description that you said before. He takes what blew George Duke's mind is that Frank could take so many different types of sounds that you wouldn't think they would come together, and he could put them together, and somehow it would come out and sound beautiful. And he said that's always blew his mind, how he could take that. And then that struck me because there's really a richness in his sound that's why I wanted to ask Roxana is that what is he doing? I mean, he really mixes a lot more into it. I don't know what it is, but maybe she can, from her musical background, explain that to me.
Well, it's really curious. It's his multi-track studio. He's got the state-of-the-art studio, and he can layer things in there, to the extreme. But I like this statement. We played it last week. Let's see, where is it? Steve Vai is talking about Frank, and where is it? Still looking just a second. Still looking. There it is. Listen to Steve Vai. I like this opening.
I think the definition of a genius is a person that's able to call into play this inspiration very simply and organically at any time they want. And I've seen Frank do this constantly. But then again, there's times where even, you're at your best. And at this particular event, which was Soundcheck, Zulors, Halloween, New York City Palladium, Frank just played the guitar like I've never seen anybody in my life.
Okay, that's a pretty good statement. A genius is a guy or a woman who can call on their abilities instantly and maybe get inspired or have a pattern. But I've seen Zappa be like a UFO in concert, like just unbelievable environment of music and sound. So I can imagine what Steve I witnessed at a sound check is almost like Zappa was possessed. And the rest, I'm just going to play like 20 seconds. Listen to this. This is a footage of him playing. It's not the recording of that sound check, but look at what's crammed in there, even though the YouTube's not perfect. Listen to this. borders on madness. It's slightly cacophonous. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't even know how many instruments are playing there, but he's in the middle of it, roaring along. And if you don't mind that kind of sound, it's the richest, deepest, thickest, ecstatic expression going.
Was that a YouTube clip? Because that's what I heard last week, and I wanted to ask you.
I played that last week. Yeah. You want to know which particular clip that is?
Yes.
Steve, I think it's called Steve Vai on Zappa. It has a headshot of himself, and then there's many minutes of him talking, and then he gets to that part, and then they show Frank playing, and it's at a different angle looking up at Frank, and he's just wailing. It's like Frank was expressing the wide open effect of iondom or ion spaces that was coming, and no musical rules applied. He just was possessed by the space. Hey, look, what the hell's going on? When you see that live in the 8th row, it's fucking unbelievable. Like, it's not even music. I don't know what it is. It's an intensity. He's actually communicating non-physical tones. The sound is only approximating what he's talking about, what he's trying to communicate. And he's got really good other musicians in there, keeping up with them as much as possible. But I can imagine every now and then he just goes way beyond human level. And that's what Steve I witnessed one day. He said, I've never seen anybody play. I don't know what, you'd probably say, I don't know what Frank was doing. It was probably multiple Franks playing. Multiple guys playing right there beside each other.
It's funny you say that, because when I heard that, because, I love the guitar, tried to play the guitar and heard a lot of leads, but then listening to Frank, it's almost like, normally you hear lead guitar, it's like accentuates what the band is playing, but in that clip there, he was leading the rest of the band. They were following him. Yeah. They were following him in that lead. But it sparks a memory of what I remember hearing George Duke, and it just blew my mind, is that first thing George said that Frank was very underrated. They underrated Frank as a guitar player, and he said he was so amazed how Frank could improvise that he asked him, how did he do it? And Frank told him he sees shapes. When he's improvising, he sees shapes coming together, squares, triangles, rectangles coming together, and he sees that, and he just plays based on what he sees, based on that. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to talk about.
You know what that is? If you imagine tactility as the organ that's organizing the sensory data, and so all the sensory data is coming into the central organizer, scrutinizer, it would come, who knows what it would look like to that organ, but it would look like shapes, different patterns. And that reminds me another thing. This idea that the homeopathic is both the co-anesthetic and the synesthetic, that popular image of the fractal where a pattern happens and then it disperses into a bunch of other Baroque spirals. Then it comes back to the pattern. Then it disperses. The disperses would be the synesthetic, and the coming back would be the co-anesthetic, the reintegration. But the very popular fractal image, and it's not the fractal that Ian talks about in the angel diagram. That's a whole different thing. But the fractal imagery that's popularized is a good visualization of the tactile interplay of co-anesthesia and synesthesia, of unity and diversity. So I wanted to say that hours ago. But back to this thing, so seeing shapes is like what tactility would do. To me, it would see shapes of frequencies of sound and touch and movement, and vision would be flowing in, and something's got to organize it. Or maybe nothing organizes it. It's already organized. I don't know.
So that spark is something, because when the first time you and Roxana talked, the first weekend of discussing Zappa, Roxana did some descriptions about a certain state of mind that a musician gets in through improvisation. And when I heard that, I thought about that, and I wanted to ask her some questions if she could repeat that, because that's amazing to just think, because each one of his, I mean, didn't you say a week ago or so that he never planned his lead, like what he did there, what you just played, he didn't practice that. That just came out.
No. Right. He does not rehearse. And you know, this amazing guitar experience Steve I is talking about happened during a sound check. They come in the afternoon, check the instrument, Zappa's very particular, and they start playing, and then all of a sudden he gets possessed and he just goes wailing, or whatever he did. It was not planned. I don't know who he's playing with or what the context was, but Frank does not rehearse. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yes.
The band has to rehearse every day, 5 or 6 days a week or something, for weeks and months before the tour. And they have different guys lead the rehearsal. People have been there for the band longer. Then Frank will come in later in the day, halfway through the day, and then start giving new ideas, playing out. There's always, every day was new things, and they have to change what they rehearsed all the night before. They can change and do it differently the next night.
Yeah, it's
so you think of Frank walking around. What?
No, it's a musical genius. It's a musical genius.
Right. Now, he's walking around thinking music all the time, and we're thinking whatever else goes into it. And he's radiating this power byproduct of it. That to me is imitating me walking around with the ionic effect, sending out the new song.
Yeah.
Now, Kyle posted something. What's he say? This is in the Inquick. He says, if a young Elvis walked out on stage today, you would see an artist. The reason there are no artists is because there's no Elvis or Michael Jackson on earth right now. That's a ridiculous statement. Just a bunch of average talent being trying to be artists. Bullshit. So kind. There's more artists than there ever were. And there's so much innovation. I mean, I find songs every week. There's not a monoculture. Back then, I'm reading the history of rock and roll. It was a tiny little world. So if someone had some talent like Elvis, they could dominate easily. So yeah, he was an artist of his time, but he would not be relevant to today. The artist of today is me. I'm the artist of today. Warhol would get other people to make his art for him. Well, I've created a fucking thing that creates the whole world for my art. And I include Carol in that. So music is not that important to the younger people. They're in tactile interplay. Some of them might find music interesting, but in general, they've been tactilized and not in the ear anymore. So Kyle's terms are silly. Michael Jackson, that guy was a whack job or nothing. I mean, there's not any of his music that I would listen to. Elvis I'd listen to a little bit, but in one show here, there's all kinds of great songs that I heard today that I played for the first time that I will go back and listen to. I'm not going to go back and listen to Elvis. I'm going to listen to these different guys that I played that I never heard of before. There's so much incredible creativity that they're not changing the world like Elvis did, because that world that's been changed and dumped. People don't need to change the world. What world? Where is the world? Where are the boundaries of the world? Everybody, once they get their iPhone, is equally powerful in shaping whatever's happening on their YouTube, Facebook, social media contraption. We're living in a world of the most glorified interpersonal ESP that no civilization has ever had. maybe we're not ascended, so maybe when the ascended continent had some pretty different kind of experiences. But for Little Man, this is the Little Man supernova. Little Man's doing pretty damn good of entertaining itself. And there's no dominant figures. There's no dominant figures. There's too many people contributing. Look, if we go, listen to the beginnings of what we did today. Just the variety. Let's see. Start off, this guy's pretty good. I don't even know him. Vider Busk. Now this guy goes into really wild guitar later, but I'm not going to wait till we get there. There's this new kind of halting singing.
Look at here, baby, it's all
the guy just before Mata Hoople that we're hearing now is Nathaniel Rateliff. Alyssa says, I know Nathaniel Rateliff. I like his music. I like this piece that we're playing. So Alyssa knows him. You just said that. Alyssa's been saying, let's see. Yeah, to call in, Alyssa. Jeez, where are you? She says, Frank's solos are both the melody, and she's a musician, so she might know what she's talking about. Frank's solos are both the melody, in brackets the story, and the atonal, the space. He's improving and therefore jazzing. Maybe she means he's improvising. He's improving, therefore jazzing. Then she says, Frank is both showing up and leaving through improv. Dropping in, dropping out, freaking in, freaking out, the both and. And then I know Nathaniel Rateliff. So, there you have it. Let's see if she called in. Anybody calling in? Well, Sarah's there. Do you want to say something, Sarah? That's little Sarah, I think.
Actually, I've been listening to Bert for several weeks now. And I've heard you say several times, Bert, that you find music intimidating. And I hear you saying that you don't feel like you have a good basic grasp on it. And I just, I've been really
that's when I was younger.
Well, I've been working on...
To learn to read.
Okay. What was it?
It's when I was younger to read music. I don't find
yes, okay. Even better, because I've been working on a diagram chart for you that shows solfege or solfeggio, depending on where you live. It's a form of teaching people pitch to sight reading, and you can use hand signals. It also lines up with the chakras, and I was going to put the information that would tell you what, like the chants like Om and Mani and all of those, they line up to the A, B, C, D, or Do, Re, Mi. Do's actually C. Just not to confuse you too much, but I was working on making a chart that will show you where in the body those notes resonate, and also how they correspond to other aspects of life that you actually, I think, understand a great deal. Like, I feel like it must have been a discrepancy where someone wanted you to learn it a certain way, and I really feel like I have an idea of a chart that would give you the confidence of, and like kind of show you, look, you already know this. But it was...
Okay, Sarah, just take a break. Yeah. Miss Sarah, I'm muting you. Is that Alyssa just called in, anonymous? Somebody just called in. Who's that? It's not listening and not speaking. Okay, back to Sarah. I just wanted to check in case she was pressed for time. Okay, back to you, Sarah.
Well, that's about it. I just really wanted to, if anything, just reiterate that I have a lot of faith in you, Bert. I really do think that you understand it, maybe even from struggling to grasp it in your childhood. I think you have a better understanding than most people. Sometimes it's hard to show that if it's an innate understanding. But I keep hearing Bert say that he wishes he could or that he wants to, and I feel like, honestly, Bert, I feel like you do. I just think it needs shown in a pattern that you already understand, that you didn't realize was musical. That's all.
Okay, so look at the variety I was just running through, Bert. And I'll keep an eye. Alyssa's trying to call in. I don't know why she has to make an effort. Maybe it's where she is. But listen to the next song. This is the variety here. This one.
So you're facing a crowded place, so beautiful you are. It was like the pick I had in mind. Oh, now that I'm looking in your eyes. Oh, now I know and feel that you will be just right. If you wanna come with me,
part of the effects of the RNA drops is being slightly stoned. You know, when you're stoned, you like anything pretty well. I think that's what's happening to me. I like anything. It's reasonable. I don't even know. It's not even that. These songs may be boring to everybody or stupid or something. I played a little more rockabilly than usual, but or jump music they called it. But everything is fucking good. Now, this is just a preamble. Next week, people, a new Bob. A new Bob next week. Get ready for it. If all goes well, it'll happen. What would be the date? December 19th. Bob is number 19, so very appropriate. December 19th. Get ready for a new Bob, a new expression of Dobbs Town. Never been seen before. Get ready. Be excited all week long. Chat it up on Dupes. I can't wait. I can't sleep. New Bob showing up. Re-Bob, new Bob. This will make Elvis and Michael Jackson look like fucking pikers.
You know, it may be that you hear more. I mean, there's more sound that you hear. I mean, because I hear all the instruments, or I can focus. Sometimes I can go in and hear, like maybe the drummer, but then you also hear the whole. It's just a different listening now for me.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to understand anything. It's just all pleasurable.
Maybe that's what it is.
What's there to understand here? I don't understand this good feeling I'm having. I like Nathaniel Rateliff, or whatever his name is.